Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the second episode of the Talky Taka podcast, season 2. This week we discuss the Caicedo derby. Fans of Rajshri Productions might ask, Caicedo. And the United game, was it a penalty or was it just two men tumbling into each other in the middle of a WWE ring? We discuss the professional Newcastle performance. City are back, as is Haaland. But is KDB out for long? Any transfer news and speculation? I think a couple of our panelists have been wishing for Harry Maguire to leave. That seems to have hit a roadblock, a fridge size roadblock, if I may. And then we also preview the games that are coming up over the weekend. So, without further ado, I'll introduce the panelists. We've got Ashwin, we've got Radhaji, and we've got RK today. Boys, how have you been? The first weekend has happened. As someone who did not watch any of the games, are there any talky points you want to highlight? Ashwin, let's start with you.
Yeah, two moments for me, Swag. Also, belated happy birthday to our host. Uh, so Kane still hasn't won a trophy, so that happened. Uh, After our Spurs rants last week, I think we jinxed him so much that he ended up losing the Deutschland Pokal as well. And the other moment for me was, aside from the United one, obviously we'll go into that. Isak's goal. What a marvelous goal that was! Like, it was almost like Thierry on Henry. Like, it was so audacious, that chip over the keeper, over the defender, and Newcastle were on fire. So I think that is definitely my talky moment of the week.
Radhaji, how has it been for you? A draw at Stamford Bridge, a familiar tale as for the last few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it sound like everything. This was just a normal week. This has been the most crazy, abnormal, never seen before kind of weeks that I've ever experienced. Yeah, result was as expected. I think when the draw came out a long time ago, I looked at it and said, this wouldn't be a bad opening weekend draw. And it was one. I expected a nil-nil as we've seen for the last four games, but it was at least a 1-1. Very, very entertaining game. So happy about that. From a talky moment point of view, Isaac was one of mine that I was thinking about as well. Um, I think the Luis Diaz goal was great as well. We'll come to the Liverpool game. Caicedo, I'm sure we'll get there. But I'll go with KDB. I think that's a huge one early on in the season and first weekend where we've seen too many big injuries, in my opinion. Like, crazy amount of Julian Timber went down, Tyrone Mings went down. KDB definitely will be the biggest one of the lot.
And finally, RK, what's it going to be for you? Are you going to go for the United non-penalty, or rather the Wolves non-penalty?
No, that was, hands down, so to say, a penalty for me. So I won't talk about that as my talky moment of the week. I will pick out one really good individual piece of skill that has stuck with me since the game week. That's Martinelli on the first Arsenal goal, which Nketiah scored, coming down the left wing, doing the like a marvelous swivel, and with that swivel, he executes a flick pass. So that's the moment of the week for me, true Brazilian, samba style. And I think I would also, like to talk about the McAllister pass to Salah. That was also another exquisite piece of passing, I thought.
Okay, doke. Right, let's get into it. I think there were assertions during the build up to the first game that a WWE style custody match between Liverpool and Chelsea might be in order to decide who gets Moises Caicedo, or something like a gender reveal where he finally pops a confetti cannon, which is either red or blue in color. It seems that Chelsea have, not it seems, he's been unveiled. So Chelsea have won the race to call Caicedo one of their own. But this was, as Radha said, this was a crazy week, right? I think the game was overshadowed by everything that happened around it, with Caicedo, with Lavia, what's happening. Coming to the game, Radhaji, how was it?
Yeah, so let's start with the football on the pitch, and then we can come to a much more dire conversation. I thought the game was absolutely superb. Probably the game of the weekend for me. To watch as a fan, I think 90 minutes it was non-stop action. From a Liverpool point of view, first 25-30 minutes, we really it really gave me a lot to be positive about. I was worried looking even before the teams were announced. After the teams were announced, starting with McAllister and Soboslai as the only midfielders who were playing in midfield, and Gakpo being a forward who was playing in midfield, I was a little worried. But we started off the game just amazingly. I think McAllister and Soboslai have been two amazing signings. I have to remind myself that when we come to the topic of signings later on. But McAllister and Soboslai look like they've been really astute signings. They have so much energy. Their technical ability is through the roof. Immediately, you could see what Liverpool have been missing in their midfield for the last how many ever years. We have bits and pieces of it with Thiago, but it's always been Thiago along with, say, Henderson or Milner or somebody else. So the skill level of that midfield and the energy and the pressing, we didn't get to see too much of the pressing because I think both were playing a little deeper than they would have liked to have played. And hopefully, when we sign a six, that will get corrected and we'll push both of them a little bit forward, closer to the opposition box, and then there'll be a real handful. They're both pressing machines. I think where it went wrong was after Salah scored the offside goal. I think we kind of just let Chelsea back into the game. And how we did that is, I think we took a step back on everything. We didn't go for the aggressive. We didn't go for the aggressive tackle or the aggressive press. We kind of dropped back, and with such a front foot team that we played, I don't think it was a right idea at all. Chelsea, my God, I didn't expect them to be. I expected them to be good because I've been keeping an eye on the preseason, and they looked like they were on. On the. I was actually really afraid of Mudrik, and I was delighted that he didn't start. But I expected them to be dangerous. But Enzo, man, this is one of the performances I've seen in a long, long time. I'm getting a throwback to the World Cup when we were talking about his performances in the World Cup, where he just wowed us completely. 105 million later, a lot of pressure of the price tag. I think he really showed his worth in the league. He was just unplayable. He was press resistant. He was playing amazing passes on the first touch. He was running into the box. He almost set up a goal for them. Just an amazing game from him. I think he was the player of the match by a distance. Overall, really good game to watch. Liverpool played really well to start off with. Some positive signs there. We'll only get better as the season goes on. Our attack looks really frightening. So yeah, positives, and I hope we get that six so we can tie up some things at the back as well.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, I think the the disallowed goal was the turning point in the game, right? Because at that point, you thought that Liverpool are going to run away with it. Had they gone 2-0 up, I don't think Chelsea would have gotten the energy to even come back. We spoke about it in the last pod, and we know how Pochettino really likes his fullbacks. I think Kilwell also had a really good game. He was just like he just came alive after that first goal went in, and I agree with Radha. I think Enzo Fernandez had a game of a lifetime. It seems that Pochettino, they were listening to Pochettino and his tactics. It does feel that suddenly that this team that everyone had written off with the game that they have had now with Liverpool and some of the transfers that they have made with Caicedo, potentially Lavia as well, or is Lavia confirmed already? They definitely seem to be the team to beat. So I think kudos to Chelsea for that as well. It was a very entertaining game, especially the first half. The second half, not so much, but definitely a good watch.
Since you guys have discussed the football, in so much detail, I want to come back to my favorite topic of these two teams. That's the transfer saga. Like, I just have a question, or something which is baffling me is, with respect to both Caicedo and Lavia, what's it that has suddenly become, so unattractive about Liverpool and so attractive about, Chelsea? Like why would both players, choose Chelsea? Something which I'm like kind of beating me, because Lavia might not even be first choice, with this, like having bought Enzo, having bought, Caicedo, two players above 100 million that they can't drop. I'm not for one able to understand why Lavia would now also reject Liverpool and go to Chelsea.
So from a Chelsea perspective, I think the one thing that's definitely more in Chelsea's favor is the length of the contract. That gives these guys a lot of certainty, financial security, if you can call it. It is a bit young for them to be doing this, considering they're 21 and 19. This is the time they can take a chance, and they're getting the opportunity to play in Europe with Liverpool. Uh, Apart from that, honestly, I don't think we would be such great paymasters because these guys aren't a Lukaku or someone that they'll end up getting a 300k pay packet. Anyway, I think those are days of the past. Right now, the current regime is quite a lot into performance-based salary metrics. So I'm not so sure if apart from the contract length, anything else makes it, unless it's the project that's appealing to them.
I don't see in this particular case, it's for me, it comes down to just pure incompetence. I ended last episode like almost going on a little bit of a mini rant slash worry about how things are so disorganized and how I've never seen Liverpool in this kind of situation where some Saudi clubs randomly come in and then throw our entire season into turmoil. I listening back to the episode, I thought I was a little over the top in how negative I was being, and then the next day they kind of went and agreed the Caicedo fee, right? When that happened, I was like, oh, so this is what they were planning. Maybe this is what they were planning, and that's why they were so tentative in the. But having seen how this week has gone out, the sheer incompetence of those calling the shots at Liverpool is just. I think if anybody wanted an advertisement for why you need a technical director, sporting director, director of football, all of that, and not somebody who's just loaned in at the last minute for a 3 month stint, it's just watching Liverpool this transfer season. Just go back a month or maybe a month and a half ago, and we signed Sabozlai, McAllister early. We were all talking about, wow, Liverpool have got their job done nice and early before even preseason has started. Amazing, efficient, typical Liverpool. That seemed like the kind of moves that we were making when we had already closed it 6 months ago. We had already made the decisions, made the discussions, been in touch with the teams, probably the players, closed on personal terms. All of that was done probably months ago. And as soon as the summer came about, we were just making decisions on, do we want to get Soboslai or do we want to get Kefren Turam? But both we were talking to, and both we were ready with. And those were executed seamlessly, typical Liverpool. The moment something came up that we didn't expect, which is the Fabinho and Henderson transfer, absolute deer in headlights. Now let's think about what's happened here. So we've been talking to Lavia for the entire summer. We've pretty much agreed personal terms with him. That has been reported. And you guys know I don't really care about that whole personal terms bullshit. But this is the first time. This week is the first time where it meant shit, because we've actually closed personal terms with a guy. We've been talking to that team for weeks, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and we've not moved on that. We've been budging on 1 million, 2 million, 3 million here and there. Out of nowhere, we come up with 110 million bid for somebody else, and we haven't even spoken to the player. It was just pure deer in headlights behavior. And it is that. So Caicedo was never even thinking about Liverpool as a destination. He's agreed on a contract with Chelsea months ago. In May is what they were reporting. He just suddenly sees a bid, and he like, obviously I can understand why he's like, okay, this is not at all what I've thought about. I've already agreed to go to Chelsea, so this is something I'm not going to consider. And at the same time, it's now been reported that Lavia accepted Liverpool's offer but then felt second choice. So I mean, it's just by that one bid of Caicedo where they had maybe 10% chances of signing him, we screwed Lavia as well. So I don't think that Chelsea's project or Chelsea's wage offering would have been anything different than what they would have got at Liverpool. I think Caicedo was never going to come to Liverpool. It was very stupid. We took a gamble which just did not pay off, and then we ended up losing a guy who was basically, he had booked an Uber all the way to Anfield already, and we lost that guy as well. And we're sitting ducks right now. Everybody knows we have the money. Everybody knows that we're desperate. So I'm just absolutely, I'm shocked, gobsmacked about how this transfer window has gone. Liverpool, who has been probably the best team when it comes to handling transfers, being in the market, the not giving up a position of power in the last 5 years, to now look like sitting ducks like this in the market. I'm absolutely shocked. I know we'll get something done, but now everybody knows that we've really embarrassed ourselves. We've behaved like a real amateur club in this transfer window.
My favorite meme of this whole thing is Klopp standing on the touchline, during the warm up, and he's like hands in pockets, staring across the field, and Lavia Caicedo warming up. So that was my favorite meme. I don't know what you guys remember. Like so many good memes that came out. But having said that about Chelsea's, such huge transfers on like deep lying midfielders and stuff. I was reading that after all the amortization and everything, Chelsea are still, even if we just consider the players that they have signed in 2023, they are still at a 10 million pounds loss when you do a plus minus of the amortization and the sales. And last 2 years, I think they have had losses above 100 million pounds. I somehow, Swag, don't see, how this is really ending in a way that, Chelsea will be there within the 3 year kind of 90 million pounds or whatever it is.
So so let's differentiate. One FFP requirement is the UEFA requirement, which is where all this Boli style amortization of 8 years, etc., was cut down this summer, where they said no, you can amortize only up to within 5 years. You cannot amortize over 8 years. The Premier League still allows amortization over the entire contract length, which is still going to be something like 8 years or so. Having said that, as uh, multiple sources have been reporting, it's like 65 million or in the bank or 10 million under, etc., etc. So all that is fine. I see basically two situations. One, we've signed tons of players, a few of whom will turn out to be duds and will potentially be sold on to other clubs next summer. Like we've been selling our academy players and making this a going concern. The which is why you have all these 17, 18-year-old kids who are coming into the Chelsea group per se and going to Strasbourg on loan or going elsewhere on loan. The other is that Boli sees this, that okay, I'm getting my own squad in, which still doesn't have a number one keeper despite having spent 1 billion pounds. Uh, I know that hopefully I should get back into the Champions League spots this season, and most likely I will get a ban for a couple of windows. But I've basically signed 2 or 3 11s, so it'll be okay. I'll have to manage from what I have. I have three keepers who I'm hoping will come up to speed and become number one keepers, etc., etc. So these are the only two situations how I see this playing out. So either we continue to sell the players next season as well and getting something like 150 million in outlay, which keeps balancing this amortization out. Otherwise, yeah, we need success on the pitch ASAP.
Yeah, so that's there's an article on Athletic which talks about what Chelsea are potentially doing. See, they have a 120 and 145 million loss in the last 2 years that they've reported. So if they were in Europe, they're not meeting FFP. There is one thing which I don't completely understand, which is they have a I think the Premier League allows clubs to write off COVID losses, and if you're talking about a 3 year period, then this is the third and final year that you can do. So maybe there's something there where some of their past losses are getting written off. I read somewhere that they're devaluing the players that they had signed last season and the season before that and stuff already in their books and writing off the losses and stuff like that. So maybe that's something, but the crux of the matter is what Swag said at the end. They have to be successful on the pitch, I think. And they're also going to they're doing this real high risk buy and sell kind of policy that some of the top selling clubs in Europe do, like Leipzig and some of the Portuguese clubs and stuff like that, except that Chelsea is doing it at a much larger scale. They've actually bought for a 900 million or £1 billion, and then they're looking to sell and make accounting profits on those. Whatever said and done, at the end of the day, as per what has been amortized already, we're talking about 100 million a year at least. That's in the books. So if they don't have successful signings, if they don't have successful on pitch seasons, they don't have much room to replace these with now more expensive players as well. So that's where they might get stuck, that if they don't deliver this year, if they don't make the Champions League this year, or if their transfers, a lot of them turn out to be duds, not a lot of them, but some of them, then replacing them is not going to be as straightforward as it has been in the last four windows, where I think this cannot continue. We're talking about almost 2 years worth of revenue, of Chelsea's revenue just spent on transfers. Of course, now it won't be accounted all for in 2 years. It'll be accounted for over 8 years, but still, it's still no other club is doing it. So that tells you that it can't be happy-go-lucky, no risk kind of strategy. Now, the exact nuances of this, I'm sure the billionaires who have now flown down to London are, I think, John Henry is gone to Arsenal and gone to United and gathering the jackals to just start complaining to the Premier League about Chelsea to try and figure out what the hell is going on. I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it, but it definitely looks like a very risky strategy, which is extremely dependent on them doing well this year.
Okay, that's the long answer to your question. The short answer is they're fucking cooking the books. These Chelsea buggers have been doing this since 2004, so they'll
So
get
I
past it.
actually had a question. I had a question for Swag on that. Cooking the books is like, so it seems most obvious to me that there's something that cannot be possibly right going on here. But
You
Swag
you can
Clear Lake is running the club, and they have a reputation of being like an investment firm, right? Like, so how this doesn't add up. It doesn't look like some bowly crazy guy doing whatever he wants. Clear Lake is actually running things, right? So
Yeah.
how is this happening?
To be honest, I'm I'm
cooking the books.
as
That's
befuddled as you guys are. You remember? I mean, I was when I was driving over on the weekend, and I was like, we've bid for Caicedo and Lavia, and we've not bid 100 million. We've bid 115 million because Boli and Ekbali have flown down to London to take care of the negotiations themselves. Like, I don't even know. I honestly I don't know.
you
I think this is a movie that's 3 years in the making, and this is only the first year, and only at the end of the third year we'll like, okay, so this is what is going on, or which is most likely going to end up with us flouting FFP. Okay, so moving on to another of the clubs that were part of the Super League at one point of time and had American owners and also have American owners still is Man United. I think the performance of the game wasn't too much to write home about. Mason Mount got a bit abused on social media. His brother had to come to his rescue. But I think there was only one talking point that came out of this, which was the WWE style flattening of a 6'4" or 6'5" man in the Wolves striker Kaladzic by Onana. Was it a penalty? Was it not a penalty? I think we won't go into too much into that because I think all the panel here is agreed that it was one. But I think the discussion we had last season still remains that there is absolutely no consistency in the application of the rules by the referees.
Before we come to the penalty, I'll just talk about the performance because, like, all our viewers would remember how optimistic all the United fans were. So, coming from that level, this was like a real, blow of a reality check for I think most of us. I think rather than panicking too much, there were some things to be really concerned about, but it it seemed to me like a real intensity issue where we just came onto the pitch with low intensity, and a lot of the issues stemmed from the fact that we were pretty flat. So, for example, build up a lot of the like commentators and experts were talking about how Wolves had choked the middle part of the pitch and how they didn't allow us to build up, and that kind of made us panic a bit and stay at the back and be too conservative. But I think that was more to do, while all that was true, it was more to do with United being very sluggish and very, very slow in moving the ball. A lot of players had off games, including, very consistent players like Casemiro, Lisandro, even they had a really poor game, except for Varane. I think I can't name any player who really, scored more than 6 out of 10. There was also like one thing on the ball was that we were really lacking a focal point, and we were also lacking runs in behind. So we were constantly looking for to pass through Wolves, and when that wasn't possible, we weren't really looking for something that we are really strong at, which is trying to pass balls in behind. Rashford wasn't really making a lot of those focal runs where he comes deep and he's able to pick the ball up and cause problems. So that was again something that probably I was talking about Hoyland maybe needing 2 3 months to bed in, but he might have to start coming in as soon as he's fit. So that's where we are in terms of number nine depth. Uh, and also I think in terms of the midfield battle, we lost a lot of duels all across the pitch. In fact, not just in midfield. That was again to do with the intensity. I think that part is something which will be rectified. What I think may not be rectified easily, and which we really need to focus on is once we lose the first phase of pressure and once teams start to break, we really need to get the two eights, Mount and Bruno, to really support Casemiro. That wasn't happening at all. We had too many midfield runners kind of swamping Casemiro. However good a player you are, you can't deal with two or three runners at the same time. And our defensive line was too deep, I thought. With Onana in the team, the first thing I thought was that our defensive line would naturally go higher. That didn't happen. That is also something I expect us to improve, especially after the Lens game, which gave a lot of us so much optimism, and we saw those kind of things happening. But yeah, the main thing that I'll carry away from this match is that how the midfield can support Casemiro much more. That's the main thing that United had to improve on.
Yeah, and I think Swag, you mentioned about Mason Mount as well. He Ten Hag wanted him because obviously he wanted that attacking kind of an eight who was able to pressure in early. What that led to is that it's obviously a high risk, high reward kind of a maneuver, right? Like him attacking early also leaves this gaping hole behind Bruno and himself, right? So Casemiro has a lot more to cover. And even though he's a world class midfielder, he's 31 years of age, right? Let's not forget that he's not like 25, 26 anymore, that he's able to cover that much distance. So I think Mount will have to come back to support him as well, because he just can't be a one trick pony. Like he can't just be going forward, he can't just be pressing. So I think he definitely deserves the brick badge that he got on social media. Um, I think one thing that we did really well is, and you got to give the defenders a bit of credit on this, is we were really good as far as our blocking game is concerned. Uh, the number of shots that Wolves had that were blocked were just insane. And Onana made some really good saves as well. So I think kudos to him for that. Of course, we would be discussing the penalty because it was a clear-cut penalty. I was just joking in the group. I think I posted in the group when that penalty incident happened that it could have gone either ways, and I remember I think one of you lost their shit and you were like, how is that not a penalty? And there were articles floating around and from and shares from other United fans saying that that those sort of things have not been given before. But come on, he literally like clobbered into the forward. Like he had no intention of getting the ball. He just wanted to hurt him. Like that's how I saw it. And the testimony to that is, the referees after the game actually apologized for it, and they have been taken off the panel for the next set of games. So that just goes to show it was a penalty. So I think a lucky reprieve for us. Uh, you know, 2 months down the line, we'll just be talking about the 3 points that we got. So I think it was important to get those 3 points. Uh, I think the performance will improve. Ten Hag will instill some of the philosophy that he has in mind. But it was important to get the 3 points, and that's what we got.
Yeah, so it definitely was a penalty, and I'm happy that somebody is holding. I think we ended last season's podcast the season by talking about what we're looking forward to or what we want to see differently in the next season. And I think RK talked about refereeing, and I talked about it as well. That just want to see. We've talked about refereeing too much, and the inconsistency of application is something that's just really annoying. Um, there's another one that happened in this weekend. It was in the Liverpool Chelsea game, the Diaz header, which was going on goal, and I think it was Colville or it was someone else, but it was a handball. Oh no, it was Jackson. So it was a handball, and his hands were facing up, and it was at the side, obviously, because it was I'm going to say half a yard between the deflection of Diaz and the player. That was not given as a penalty, which because it was very clearly accidental. However, we have seen those given in the past. We have seen such accidental hands in weird position penalties given in the past. That is one thing I'm going to keep my eye on as well. The consistency of this, I really feel like that was not a penalty, the Jackson one, and it shouldn't be given because there's really nothing you can do in that situation. There's the Brighton Luton game. Luton's penalty also was a guy sliding in, falling down, and his backhand, which he was not even looking at the ball, and his backhand, which was off his body and on the way down to shield his fall, the ball hit that hand, and the penalty was given, and they ended up scoring. There was more distance, of course, than the Jackson one, but again, there's I'm finding it hard to reconcile what is accidental, what is not accidental, what is acceptable to referees to give, what is not. We saw some really dubious red cards given last season of somebody going over the ball and getting clattering into somebody's legs. We saw those same ones being called an error and being given a yellow. I think that's the frustrating thing as fans. I want to see the keepers get punished if they just fly into people. I want to see accidental ones not given, but most of all I want to see these refs held accountable. There's this bullshit argument that people are saying that if you put too much pressure on the refs, then they are the most they are most under pressure people in football. What they are the ones that hold everything together between like even things like, oh, if they are on the wrong side of things, then maybe there'll be more match fixing and stuff. That's a bullshit argument, man. Like at the end of the day, or at the highest level, if somebody's not doing a good job, I'm sure there are plenty of other people who are capable of taking up that job, and you should hold people accountable for being shit. So yeah, happy that somebody called out that this was a mistake and that the team has not been given a go for next week. That's a start. I want to see how people, what the VAR reacts like the next time something similar happens.
I think the punishment or any kind of suspension should go for VAR, because referees, players make mistakes and they get to play the next game. Referees also, there should be something like a performance rating probably, rather than going on one match. But for VAR, because they have the power of review, they don't take instant decisions. They can take the time and give their call. I think it's their prerogative to always be right, or at least avoid really silly mistakes like how they did with the Onana goal. And the second thing, of course, is consistency, right? And we'll keep coming back to that, because even in the same weekend, Tottenham, I think Vicario had a similar issue. He didn't get punished. You had Jose Sa doing it last season. What Onana did, he didn't get punished. And I shared that clip on the group as well, where Anthony, I think, had a legitimate shout for a penalty, and that was not even discussed. I think he was maybe not clobbered is the wrong word I used, but he was definitely shoved off the ball. It like there was contact, and we didn't see. And it's a very similar kind of offense. So I don't know, when we will kind of see any kind of consistency on that.
Yeah, I wonder if we will be able to add referees to our FPL squads with like expected errors and things like these, giving us points. On that note, how did your first game week go? I think in FPL everyone had Haaland as captain, and that worked out pretty well for everyone. But apart from that, what's the key
It
takeaway?
bloody sucks, man. Like I've not played FPL in a few years now, and I came out after the first day of the weekend. I'm on 58 points, and I'm feeling like, oh yeah, killing it. I was like 14th in a 20-man league, like, and I finished on 16th or something with some 70 plus points. What the hell is this FPL now? I think Haaland is just like ruined the game.
Uh, I was one of those idiots who did not captain Haaland, but I did captain Saka instead, thinking that he had an easier game. But yeah, I ended up with 76 points, which is okay, uh, I, 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 I guess. But yeah, Haaland, man, he's a cheat code. You just need to captain him. That's
I
a
think
given.
I remember one of the game weeks last time round when I did not captain him. I think that was against United, and he ended up with a hat trick. So I have learned my lesson from then. If Haaland is not walking around with a crutch, he's the captain of my team. And so others think, like 90% of players have him in the team. On that note, any listeners wishing to join in our league are more than welcome to do so. We already have around 20 people, as Radha said. Interestingly, someone in the league has Maguire in their team. I wonder if it's a United fan trying to jinx their team into action, just like our esteemed United fans on the pod.
A quick shout out. Last week we called out a few people to put in your FPL teams. Just looking around, Estupinian I think was one that we discussed. He did well. He looked really good as well. Mitoma was another. He came up with an assist and some absolutely brilliant skill for the goal that they eventually scored. He didn't get credited with an assist because it was a penalty, but some amazing skill there. He was another one. Watkins with an assist. Umbuemo as a midfielder, also a penalty taker and playing as a striker, ended up scoring a goal. So yeah, I think a lot of the shout outs that we gave on the pod doing pretty well. So good start to the FPL season for Talky Taka, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Another of those shouts would be Alexander Isak, also mentioned in the talkie points. And it was an extremely professional performance by Newcastle against Aston Villa, another of those teams who were being expected to be among the top halves, and very few goals conceded under Unai Emery last season since he took over. And they were smashed and grabbed completely by Newcastle, and I think two substitutes also scoring. Newcastle looking good, at least right now when the Champions League hasn't started.
Hey, I'm the guy who called Howe as the potential first sacking of the season. So, yeah, that was not a great start from a prediction point of view. Absolutely thrashed Villa. To be fair, Villa were crap. I think all the things that RK said about United, I think apply to Villa as well. So they just started off a little slow. The pace was off. They looked like the physicality was just not there. The last goal, the fourth goal that Harvey Barnes scored is, I mean, if you guys haven't seen it, you should just rewatch it. Like schoolboy level shit. Just a bunch of scared defenders waiting on the halfway line, not knowing whether to go to the defender or to run to the other side of the halfway line. Just hilarious stuff. And Harvey Barnes ran in and scored. Yeah, Newcastle looked good. I think Villa looked shite.
After all the money that has been spent on, we have seen some really abhorrent fees, with 115 million, 105 million. Sandro Tonali in that match looked like a real, like kind of value for money, a real steal at that price, 60 million pounds. I think he really ran the show. The goal was, somewhere, running into the box, being able to make good movements and scoring. So I think all round, box to box play, I think Tonali was really I had not really seen him play before he made his debut in the Premier League. So he really looks like a step up. I thought like a lot of the signings that Newcastle made, very good signings, but will not allow them to make the step up. And probably that's why a lot of us didn't even go for them. Barely any one of us, went for them in the top four. But uh, looking at this performance, what is for sure is that the whole team ethic, whatever they built last season, still holds true in terms of their intensity, how they play the game, the pressing they do, the speed at which they play. Of course, all our concerns stem from them playing twice a week. That's not going to happen till the first international break. So I still hold on to those predictions, but really, really, good performance from Newcastle.
Um, their opponents in game week 2, Manchester City, the current champions, they looked like they never left. It was all as expected. Everything was going fine, apart from the fact that Rodri had to play like another 90 minutes and even had to start contributing to goals because KDB is off injured. I think that's probably the key talking point for me from this game, that we'll likely not see KDB before the turn of the year and how that impacts things going forward. I see this is the 16th of August, so we've got around 15 days. Lucas Paqueta might be about to hand West Ham tons of money more, maybe even more than Declan Rice did.
One thing for all you guys captaining Haaland, and you talk so much about him, but like this game represented the end of a really lean patch. Last 9 games, 1 goal. So finally, Haaland is back to goal scoring touch. Of course, now you can captain him from now onwards.
I think they must have already won the league by then. Maybe that's why he wasn't scoring. I actually didn't think City were great. I thought I was expecting of all the new teams that I had not seen before. I was expecting more from Burnley. I heard so much about their style of play, their ability to keep the ball and play teams off the park. I didn't see much adventure. I didn't see much aggression from Burnley, from an attacking sense, aggression, not the Stoke City type of aggression. But wasn't very impressed with either of the teams in that game. Haaland's second goal just shows you it's a little bit of a cheat code. Like ball comes to him first touch from an angle, not very close by, just unsavable shot. Yeah, they'll still score these goals and they'll win these games without much effort, but they didn't really look great if you ask me.
What did you guys think of Pep at halftime? I really thought he was putting on a really, really like mean act. Like if you're going to reach the dressing room in a 1 minute, I don't see anything other than trying to show off in front of the cameras, going to Haaland and scolding him. One real big show off that Baldy is.
and pushing the camera away. It was proper drama, but it was so typical Pep, right? It was such a Pep thing to do. Like he's over the top in most of these things. So yeah, I was watching that. I'm like, what is happening? This looks so cringe. But yeah,
It is a classic Pep thing to do, right? Like he did that. He has done that previously as well. He's a very weird kind of a person that way, is because mostly like almost like an anti Jose, because Jose would probably not do that on the field. He would do that with the press, right? Like whereas like usually Pep Guardiola press conferences aren't like full of emotions, and like he doesn't really give out much controversial moments there. But I think that was an interesting one. He did come out and clarify, exactly why he did that. Apparently, he wasn't happy with the fact that Haaland was asking for the ball constantly. I think it was Bernardo Silva who did not pass to him at that point in time. And basically, Pep Guardiola was saying that, we need to pass more, and it's not like he'll always get the ball. So it's in his philosophy, and maybe that's what he wanted to show. Probably should have done it in the dressing room if you were to ask me. But just going back to Radha's point about Burnley, I think it is a team that even I was looking forward to the most, at least from the teams that have qualified from the championship. Uh, Playing City first game is probably not the game that you want to play, right? So I think the jury is definitely still out on that. I think City will definitely struggle with Kevin De Bruyne gone now. We were discussing in the previous pod that they probably look a bit weaker than what the squad that they had last year. No Mahrez, no Gundogan as well. But City, they would probably spend in that 100 million, get a replacement, and everything will be fine. So let's see how it goes. But at least the first game, they weren't the most convincing team that we are used to seeing in the league.
I think Haaland was being shouted at for Bernardo Silva by Pep because Pep knew that KDB was out, so he needs all the midfielders that he can carry on without having to acquire more from outside. But on that note, apart from Lucas Paqueta, any other interesting moves that are catching your fancy? I mean, Ashwin and RK are both pissed about Harry Maguire not going. He
I
had
was going
agreed
to ask that
terms,
you were
or
talking about ins or outs, because the only transfer that I'm concerned about is Harry Maguire fucking off from Man United.
man, there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate on the group for Harry Maguire. I mean, I when I was reading all of that, I felt like Maguire has, gone to a bar somewhere and smashed some Man United players and come out.
Well,
That he settled. United were willing to give him 6 million as compensation, is what I read when he got the deal done to West Ham, and that also wasn't enough. He's asking for much more to cover up the wage deficit. That somehow, even the 6 million didn't make sense at all to me. I don't understand why. If a player decides that he has to leave, he should do it on the terms which have been offered to him. Like the selling club should never have to pay money, because it just nonsensical thing for me. I never seen the likes of it happen before. Maybe you guys can correct me here. That's where a lot of United fans are really angry with this move. We also know that he's not suited to the style of play which is required, so he's basically a non-value add in the team. He's a good player, but he's not really suited. He's not going to help us that much, so we need to sell him and get a replacement. Even more important than Maguire, I would say, is the midfielders. To be sold, mainly Van der Beek and McTominay. So a lot of the optimism that we had last week was because at that point in time, Van der Beek's exit was really close. McTominay was still looking close. Maguire was kind of done. So a lot of us were expecting, 60, 70 million pounds. Fred was about to be, get done. So with 60 to 80 million pounds in the bank, we were really, hoping that one centre back and Amrabat or someone, joins. A lot of that optimism has just, blown up into smoke of the last 7 days. So United fans really looking forward to more exits. I, for one, would be really happy if McTominay leaves. He's coming on for 5 minutes. Those are exactly the kind of players that we need to sell. we should not be looking out for 45 million, 40 million. I think that's another blunder by United recently. We have to be able to get decent value, and look at what we can do in the short term. So I think, yeah, Ashwin was right. United fans are looking at outgoings at the moment.
Yeah, not on the same page as you, like your take on Maguire. I think at the end of the day, he's got a contract. If somebody's gonna come and offer him a lower wage, I see no reason why a professional would take a significantly lower wage. Is different if it was fulfilling some ambition, but it's West Ham at the end of the day. And from all practical purposes, it seems like he wants to play for United as well. Now, it's a different thing that the manager doesn't really rate him that much, or the fans don't rate him that much. But I mean, if at the end of the day, the 190K wage he's on is probably proving to be the blocker, and it's not his. It's not that he paid himself that wage, so somebody's given him that wage. So if that's a problem, then, and if you're not able to find a club who can make a suitable offer, then just keep him. Let him be at fourth choice and fifth choice, and move on. But Swag, coming to your question, I think Jeremy Doku is an interesting one. I think both Jeremy Doku and Paqueta are not people that I expected City to be in the market for. If I remember right, the last Euros, maybe in 2018, I don't remember when the last Euros were. When for Belgium, Jeremy Doku was lighting it up, and we were all really excited about him. But like 4 or 5 years later, I haven't read too much about him in the last few years. So I'm actually surprised that he is who City are targeting to play on the wings. That's a surprising one. Personally, from a Liverpool standpoint, I think Doucouré is somebody from Crystal Palace that we are linked with. But also, again, one of the first names we were linked with in the window was Gravenberch, and I think we're linked with him again now. Yeah, obviously, because everybody else has been signed. I'm not going to say any names publicly just in case somebody from Chelsea is listening and then decides to buy them as well. But yeah, Gravenberch and Doucouré and a few others have been linked. 6 people apparently on the shortlist. I'm also now that we're not doing Caicedo, I really hope we have some money saved up to buy a left-sided centre back. So if we can close with a CDM and a left-sided centre back, minus all the embarrassment of the amateur behavior that we've had this window, I think it'll be a successful one.
Yeah, I'm not going to hazard any names for any further incomings at Chelsea. Frankly, I think it's getting a bit embarrassing with the number of players we've signed. We shall see.
Are,
But
are you are you going to sign Olise as well?
I think that one
The
was
latest.
under consideration for a long time.
He's
So I'm not
he's
going
only
to take this
considering
as a
he's only considering
Wait,
after
hold on.
Lavia and Olise, he's not going to bring up any more names. Dude, look at Swagat. He's just wiping off his tears of embarrassment with $100 bills.
and I think there will be a goalkeeper signing as well. Is what I expect, considering that Kepa
Of
has
course.
left the
Of
club to
course, of
go to
course.
Madrid. So we
It's
will
only natural.
need.
Reece James
I
limped out. You want to sign a right back as well? It's
We already have one. Malo Gusto, bad meal.
Up is not here, but he was, really ranting on social media and on WhatsApp about, Chelsea getting stranded with all the player signings that they have made, and they allow a keeper to go on loan, leaving, I think, just one senior keeper at the club. So if Up had been here, he would have, I think, in his
well,
very uncle way, given his opinion on that.
Yeah, he would have been extremely disappointed, which is fair because consider this: you got Kepa, who we've been reading during preseason that okay, Poch is happy with him as the starting goalkeeper, even though his performances during preseason also were like, okay, this is the same guy from last season. Change of manager hasn't changed anything within him. Then you hear that okay, Sanchez is coming in, so okay, he can challenge him for that spot, but potentially to start off as a number two, and if his performances warrant that, he becomes number one. Sanchez comes in. A couple of days later, Gabby Slonina, who's our US keeper and touted to be one of the next big things in a few years. He's again one of those youngsters who's like 18 or 19. He goes out on loan because Sanchez is here now. Then 2 days after that, Kepa also goes out. So now we only have Sanchez, who's just come to the club 7 days ago. And now, basically, I think we're going to play West Ham this weekend, and we'll basically play a Brighton 11 because Marco Cucurella will be in, because Caicedo said in his unveiling video that yeah, I know Cucurella, he's a very funny guy. So get Sanchez in, get Cucurella in, get Colville in, Caicedo in, all the Brighton exposure fellows, so that they can have some sort of cohesion within themselves.
I think now would be a good time to sign that Graham Potter, right? Like I think he'd be a good manager to have at this point of time.
Yeah, and change him with Deserby after 6 months. I guess that's the only thing that's left. Apparently, Brighton's Twitter account was suspended in the morning, and someone said Boli must have bought that as well. But anyway, moving on to this upcoming game week, some of the key games to look forward to. We've got City and Newcastle, two of the teams that got 3 points in the first game week, going up against each other. So we've got Haaland and Isaac coming up against each other, which basically cancels out my draft points because Isaac is unlikely to get anything against City. But apart from that, how do you see this game panning out?
I'm I actually think it's up there. It's up there for the taking, if you ask me. City are going to be they're going to be in between systems now that KDB is out, and I think Newcastle will be on a high. Isak's on a roll. Callum Wilson also scored off the bench, so things are looking good for them. Tonali and Bruno. Tonali is look great. Bruno we already know is great. So yeah, I think in the immediate term, I think they have a good chance. I still don't think Newcastle have. I don't know whether they'll have the legs to take the whole season and finish in the top four. But in a one-off in this week against the City, who's just lost KDB, I think it's up there, as good a chance as there is against City. Let's put it that way.
I think after that 5-1, Newcastle will slightly come back to earth in this game because, if I'm not mistaken, it's at the Etihad. So I expect City to still put up a performance, still be solid enough to, deny Newcastle those space on the counters. It will be a close game. It will be very interesting to watch what new things we get to learn, especially about Newcastle. Newcastle are a big threat as long as the once a week thing goes on. So definitely City have to be on their toes, have to produce their best game. But I think City will kind of shade this, is what I feel.
Definitely the other game to watch out for is Tottenham Hotspur versus Manchester United. This one should be an interesting one. One new manager, one new lineup, lots of scrutiny for both teams. Um, what's your thought on this? And RK, it's just one game week. You've got 3 points. Please don't go all jinxy for us this early in the season.
You know, you do feel a bit insulted, or insulting your club if you try to jinx against Spurs, because after all, boys, it's Spurs. So let's hope that United do put up a good show. I had very valid reasons. A lot of us had valid reasons for being optimistic going into the season. Just hoping that a lot of the very basic issues get rectified, and yeah, that we come back. The most the biggest thing I want to see is that we start with intensity. That's something that Ten Hag and his coaching staff need to work on a lot, and maybe learn from some of the best clubs like Arsenal, for example, or City, who always, consistently start games well and then go on from there. I think that's something that we really need to learn. Spurs showed some good things. They had good position. A lot of the signings from last year, like Bissouma, did well. And they are also going into this whole modern concept of having inverted fullbacks, trying to create box midfields and trying to dominate position. So it's definitely going to be a much tougher visit than what we were used to probably under Conte. But having said that, I still expect United to improve a lot from last week. One more thing that United have to be very careful about and improve on is the physicality. I feel that with the makeup of the team right now, the likes of Anthony, Mount, Bruno, Garnacho, we are not the best in terms of physicality at the moment. That is something that we have to make up for in terms of getting intensity.
I think if we play the way we did against Wolves, we'll definitely lose this game. So we need to have a game similar to how we had against Spurs when we last played them. I think it was one of the best Ten Hag performances I've ever seen. Although that game was clouded by the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo threw a tantrum, but um, I think we definitely need that intensity back. We definitely need the likes of Mount to stand up, Bruno to play a bit better as well. I was really happy with how Sancho actually played in the last game. I know it was a cameo off the bench, but it's good to see such performances. So yeah, the likes of Garnacho, Anthony, Bruno, Mount really have to step up, and we can't be playing the line that we were playing and that shape that we are playing against Wolves with. We definitely need to step up on top of it.
I think fresh legs is what you guys are talking about. So Maguire and a Johnny Evans back too. I think that sounds about right.
Yeah, as against the likes of Madison, I don't like the sound of that.
Well, at least they don't have
I
Kane.
have to say I have a small like I just want to see Maguire and Johnny Evans tag team for one game this season. Just put them in for 30 minutes and then take them off. I'm fine, but I just want to see them partner each other
Yeah,
for one game for United.
They
that will
can
cost us when United are losing 7-0 to Liverpool at Anfield and we have to while away the last 20 minutes. Johnny
haven't
Wilson
you
Manchester.
haven't you heard that Maguire is going to play for Real Madrid B team?
Somebody shared a fake Twitter news handle on our group, and everybody fell for it. Just one quick one. I'm looking forward to Villa versus Everton. I think Villa are going to bounce back. And we didn't talk about any of the potential relegation teams, but I think Everton and Luton are just absolutely bang on the money in terms of our predictions. It was actually really funny to see the Luton manager's press conference after. First of all, he had lost his voice, so he sounded like a cartoon character. But apart from that, he was just so everything was so smiley. They got trashed, and it was all everything was nice fun. And he said that he had to come out and face the reports after losing a game. Everything looked very like, hey, it's just so nice to be here. I think Luton is going to be one of those teams that after every match they've been, oh, they really tried hard, but at the end of the day they didn't have the quality to. I think they're going to get trounced by a lot of teams and they'll lose a lot of close games as well. So I mean, things can change. Of course, it's only week one. Everton also, my favorite guy Neil Maupay had at least a hat trick in on the cards and ended up scoring zero. So I just it's just hilarious to me that a team that badly needs goals doesn't create too many chances goes and signs one of the guys who's the worst of converting chances in the league. So yeah, it was quite hilarious. I think Everton might end up being on the wrong end of a Villa return.
Yeah, and our listeners will know that I will not take any names for any teams to be relegated this early in the season. I will wait till at least half time.
Another little prediction. I think Bournemouth. I mean, now they've got a new manager and everything, but Bournemouth were the worst team of set pieces last year. Soboslai in preseason has looked incredible off his corners. Even the handball discussion that we were having about Nicholas Jackson that came off a Soboslai corner to Luis Diaz, something that has had led to at least 3 goals in preseason. So I'm looking forward to some Soboslai set piece action against Bournemouth over the weekend.
Cool. Cool. As Rob Edwards lost his voice, so did I, there, listener. So, on that note, there is a lot of interesting stuff to catch up on this weekend as the games start on Friday. We will keep you updated in next week's episode.